everyone. Welcome to the Founders Foyer with me, Aishwarya. This foyer is full of conversations. The space where creators, founders, and builders can look for all the concepts to grow their ideas into products. As a part of this project, we know that there's a section called the Foyer feature, which completely focuses on a specific project and how the founder or the creator actually had an impact with it. We'll be discussing all about their journey, the way they came up with creative ideas, and the patterns that they followed to literally grow their idea from zero to one. Let's welcome John Koelliker, co-founder and CEO of Leland, a marketplace for ambitious people to access coaching, classes, mentorship, and more. And in fact, it literally connects all of us to a community where we can reach all our career and educational goals by finding a mentor or a friend to guide us through, whether it's growing in our career ladder or whether it's taking a test or finding a good school to join. So, hey, John, welcome to the Founders Foyer. It's great to chat with you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, talk to us about how was your graduate turned founder experience? What inspired you to take this entrepreneurship path and what brought you here in this journey?
Yeah. So I'm going to run through my background. I think it helps set the foundation for why I ended up doing this. So I joined LinkedIn right out of school. Before that, I'd interned at Uber, and then I joined a startup after LinkedIn called Curated. Three very people-centric marketplace businesses. Connecting riders to drivers, or on LinkedIn, connecting recruiters to ambitious people or salespeople to potential customers. And then Curated was connecting people to experts who could help them buy certain products like skis or golf clubs. So professionally, I had been building these products that had connected people to people. And then on the side, I had been running a coaching business. I had gotten into business school through the deferred MBA process. And it was just a little side thing. I wanted to, I had some people reaching out. Initially, I was just doing stuff for free. And then I was like, oh, there's something here. Maybe I'll kind of create a little business around this. So I created content. I ran boot camps. I did a lot of one-on-one coaching, and I kept trying to automate myself out of the process. I kept, creating more content videos or creating these boot camps. And what I realized is that those initiatives only created more demand for one-on-one coaching, because people didn't just want knowledge. They didn't just want the expertise. They wanted it personalized, and they wanted it, tailored to them so that they could potentially, reach the same goal. And especially when it comes to like careers, there's such an element of relationships and networking that goes into the actual process. And so people need that, and they like the content, but they want some deeper, expertise and deeper personalization as well. So, as I was kind of experimenting with ideas, I realized there was this perfect marriage between what I'd been doing for my day job as building marketplaces and what I had been doing on the side. And there was this big opportunity to play a role in the next wave of the expertise economy, how I'm calling it, and how, I think other companies are starting to think about and kind of frame this expertise economy. It's like a sister to the creator economy, but it's people being willing to monetize and share their expertise online. And we've seen an explosion of that during COVID, but really I've seen it online for the last several years. And I think the thesis that we are kind of basing Leland on is that the first generation of the expertise economy was about scaled expertise. So it was a lot of video courses, and they're great companies that do a lot of this video content. And the second generation of the expertise economy is going to be more about access to expertise. In a more intimate way. So not only being able to watch videos, but actually being able to talk to the person who created the video in the first place, and get their personalized feedback. And that's really hard to do in an affordable way, which is why I think a marketplace is so interesting. And so, yeah, we're started working on this while I was at Stanford, got off the ground, and just kept rolling with it. And it's, we feel very lucky. We've been at it for just over a year now. We've raised $5 million from some great investors and have, over 200 coaches on the platform. And so, we're off to the races and excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole journey seems to be super exciting. And, I've got a lot of points from what you just covered, and let's get to them one by one. specifically how you mentioned about how you started it as a side project, and so you sort of converted that into a whole full-time thing. So it's good that as a creator you were able to find the right need, and like you said, you wanted to get it to an autopilot mode where you sort of step back and the loop runs, and everybody gets the kind of value that they want from the whole coaching or the whole mentorship part. And it's also what makes it most standing out, I feel, is it's targeting a very niche audience, right? Because I think consulting or mentorship, or when it comes to having somebody to talk to, is has always been there. Is very traditional, and which we'll cover later in the part of the show. But I think what you've really done with Leland is make it more personalized, like you mentioned, and also get to the niche, the young audience that is trying to do the one best thing to get their career up, which is either like grow in their career while they're at the job, or try to go to a B school, or try to take some form of a skill test that they can get better at. So I think what's really good is how you were able to find that audience and build for the audience. So great story, and thanks for sharing. So then we just covering about all of this. I would point out to this part about how you converted what was more like a side hustle that you did, what was more on the side, and then you converted that to a full-time company. So what's different about both of these parts? Because, it's the same thing at the
Yes.
beginning. But what would you tell the others who are also on the same boat right now, trying to do the same thing?
Yeah. Great question. I attribute a lot of the foundation of Leland to Deferred MBA. Was the kind of the original business that I had started. And I think about them very differently. I think about them as kind of two separate companies, really. It wasn't that Deferred MBA turned into Leland. I think it was Deferred MBA existed. It taught me a lot. And then I kind of pulled it, went back and said, all right, what is the actual solution to this? Because what happens if you try to take what was a totally unscalable model, which is basically just me, creating content, me doing coaching, me doing boot camps, and try to build that business, what it turns into is, kind of John's empire, where I hire people under me and my brand is still kind of the thing that drives the interest. And that's what you see with a lot of these existing firms, right? It started with one person who had some insight, and then they kind of build their army underneath them. And it's a great model, but it's not the model that I wanted to build. I didn't want to build another firm. I wanted to build a marketplace that heroed the various coaches on the platform and allowed them to build their own empires on our product. And so a lot of it was like, and that's frankly why I think, this, like, as you mentioned, consulting mentors and other types of consultants or coaches have existed for a long time. But what's funny is, even though they've had all these, we've had consultants and coaches for a long time, like, there's no platform that you can go to find them or read real reviews on them, other than maybe LinkedIn, where you can DM people and try to get on the phone with them. There's, of course, you can there are some players in like consulting or product management where you can go and you can talk to the main person, or you can talk to one of their employees. But you can't really compare your options. You can really just read testimonials from that they've hand selected. And so a lot of that independent third party that you get in the beauty of marketplaces like Airbnb or Fiverr, Upwork, or other types of marketplaces, it just doesn't exist in the coaching world today. There's a couple businesses in like the fitness coaching, like Future, that are doing a lot of really interesting things. And obviously BetterUp has done this at the enterprise level, but it's not quite the same thing either. So yeah, I think when I kind of going back to the original question around side projects, highly recommend them. I think it kind of brings out a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit that's within all of us. Teaches you a lot about a space, allows you to test early hypotheses without having to quit your job, and kind of get conviction around a market. So when I started Leland, I had a ton of conviction around what we were building, because I had tasted, I felt like I had this insight into a space that very few other people had, and had a background in, actually building product here that, the people who did have that insight didn't have that background. And so I felt like it was a really, it's an interesting founder market fit, and gave me the conviction that I needed to go all in on everything.
Yeah. I mean, looking at side projects as a source of founder market fit is a very interesting take. And with you on like 100% over there in terms of supporting side projects as well, because I'm a huge fan of it. And I also, I'm on the same side to think about the fact that it really helps you prepare and get more confident about the kind of ideas that you try to work on. And like you feel more supported, and also the fact that you try to test it out before you go full launch. So, great take on the side project question, John. And you know
Yeah.
what?
Can I, can I,
Also,
let me add, can I add one
yeah,
thing to that?
yeah, yeah.
So one of my favorite venture capitalists is Mike Maples. He's actually not an investor in us. He started Floodgate with Ann Mirko. They're an awesome team. But one thing that he said in one of my classes at Stanford that has always stuck out to me is, so the best founders have two things. One, they have an insight, a customer insight or a market insight into a world that is not yet here, but is, the future. And then the second thing is they have the ability to actually create a movement around that. And I think what side projects do is they give you that insight into a world that maybe other people don't have, right? They allow you to kind of test things and go deeper into a space where you're like, wow, why is there nothing here? There's something really powerful, versus like just starting a company and trying to,
Yeah.
and frankly, I think that's what a lot of founders that have great founder market fit, like came from backgrounds where they had this unique insight into a world that sometimes people don't have that. And so side projects can be a good way of creating that insight.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that really makes sense because you dig deeper into the problem space and you try and understand why are you really passionate about even taking this up in the first place. Because most often when you just start the company, I think a lot of it is logistics. But getting back to the core root of okay, why am I even doing this? Is falling back to answering the same question that you would do when you're building a side project, which is like, okay, why do I want to do this now? And why should I be the person doing this now? And what is it that I want to get from this? So yeah, those are like some great words. So another point that I understood from what you were explaining is how it also connects to branding, right? Because it was quite very non obvious to get it from you that okay, you didn't directly convert what you were already working on as a side project, a brand that you already had to Leland, but you try to take a step back and try and see, okay, if I have to build a team around and make them believe in the same vision, then it's going to take another route. So just curious on that. How are you able to find the first few people who believed in the mission of Leland? Because you tried making it as a very different thing that most of them could connect to and would then want to join you on this journey. So how was it to find the first couple of people to join you in the company and as well as the mission that you're working towards?
Yeah, it's funny how, I mean, I think there's like different groups here. One is I had to convince employees or founding team members actually to join. I had to convince investors that this was worth backing. And then you have to convince customers and coaches. There's kind of like four groups here. The easiest people to convince are customers and coaches, which is why I have conviction that I would be able to convince employees and investors. Because as soon as you create, one coach to customer interaction and they're like, wow, this is way more affordable than I've ever seen. It's personalized. So this person kind of understands my background. And I'm like on path to go and achieve my goal. And the coach is like, oh, this is so fun. I get to work with someone that, it's this ambitious person and it's been an enriching relationship. And I'm having them come visit me at school so I can show them around campus. Like, you start to see some of the magic happening on coaches and customers. And then from there, it's just about like translating that to employees and investors in a story that is compelling. But it's hard, right? When you're just starting out, you have to, I've had conviction in this from the very beginning. And of course that varies and that's based on a lot of, it's a kind of, I could lay out a series of bets that I'm making that I believe in, that if they work out, that Leland would work out. And if they don't, then Leland doesn't work out. And so, getting investors and employees on board is kind of going through those in different ways. Different people are going to be held up on different things. And you're trying to convince really smart people to back you and to join you. And so they're of course not going to just take, any old answer. I think in the early days, this was a lot harder because I didn't have the data that I have now. Right now, I'm like, I can convince, I feel fully confident selling someone, an employee or an investor on what we're doing because I see it every day. Thousands of customers and, coach interactions. So that it gets a lot easier. But in the early days, when you're like, I hope there's something here. I don't know. Right. Like, I think I've been doing this on the side and I have a lot of reasons to believe, but like deep down, you're just, you're still learning.
Yeah.
But you can't come across as not knowing what you have to kind of find this balance of like, here's what I don't know yet. Here's what I do know and have conviction in. And here's what I'm going to test and how I'm going to get to, learning these things and knowing that they're real. That allowed me to feel confident in selling people on this vision in the early days when there wasn't a lot that was tangible. And that's, that I think that just gets easier over time.
Yeah, it's like trying to come up with your own framework about putting things into different buckets and then trying to take each piece at one time and then merging it up with the others. And even in this, you kind of play a very autopilot mode, right? Like you're not going over there and trying to say, "Hey, I'm John," and like listen to me. This is why I played this. But they're using one segment to actually convince the other segment, which is quite interesting because you're trying to use the actual the marketplace, both the demand and the supply part of it to again tie it back to your team or your investors and say, hey, we have some traction, we have some community that's already getting built. So I think, the results then like make it easier or at least build that path for you to make that condition. So I think, quite good to know that you are again taking yourself off the picture and then trying to use other paths to step in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting hearing you play that back. I do think of course, there's an element, especially with employees and investors around just who the founding team is, and who's involved. And so, I think part of that is just trying to be a good person, try to create patterns of success where you can show people, hey, we've done things that we've set out to do in the past. And that's hard when you're a young founder, right? Like I'm in my 20s. I turned 30 next year. So like I have to convince people to bet on me when I've never sold a company for, $100 million. So you have to kind of create conviction in the reality that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And that you've kind of done that in the past.
Yeah, that's definitely challenging. And I think that's a couple of things that we'll be discussing now on the episode. So since the marketplace model, there's always a particular challenging balance that you have to maintain when it comes to whether it's the customers who have to meet the right coaches or whether it's the coaches who want to befriend a few of their mentees. So how does this sustaining the engagement really work on the platform? And did you have any specific strategies that you pulled in some of your earlier marketplace experiences at LinkedIn or Curated?
Yeah, definitely. Lots of learnings from those companies. And we have investors from both of those companies too, which really helps because we can kind of call on them and get their take. Balancing supply and demand is really hard. Balancing supply side quality as you start to grow, making sure that you keep the bar super high. We're not constrained by any sort of like local density or physical infrastructure. Like we don't, take Airbnb. Airbnb needs houses in a bunch of cities, right? Like we don't actually need coaches in every city in the world. We could, in theory, have coaches based in one city and they could coach for anyone in the world. Ideally, we want to have some geographic diversity because I think it helps just with people understanding each other's stories. But because of that, we're not limited by who we can onboard on the supply and who they can serve. And so what that creates, and any marketplace that is like this in particular, is typically more demand constrained than supply constrained. If you have like Airbnb and Uber, a lot of those types of marketplaces, they are supply constrained. They need to add a lot more drivers or hosts because they need that density across the world. For us, we had so many good coaches wanting this. We've had to just create a wait list because we can't onboard any more coaches until we dial in a couple of things on the product and then figure out like
Good problem to
how
have.
are we going to and then figure out and start to deploy a lot more capital in terms of driving growth. Right now, we're being pretty thoughtful and we're keeping organic as our main growth channel. So we'll get to the point where we open the floodgates and probably let every coach join or figure out what type of what that looks like. But yeah, it's right now it's kind of a balancing act, and we're getting smarter about what world-class coaches look like. You know, are they responsive? Are they communicative? What types of behaviors do people really like? So we're baking that into our search algorithm and figuring out who's going to be a star coach and who may not be the best coach, even though they're a successful professional. So we're still learning how to solve a lot of those things.
Yeah, yeah. I think having a bit of a clarity on what really works in this case is going to help you, right? And you brought in a very contextual example of Airbnb being more focused on activating some of the techniques on the supply side, whereas over here it's a healthy balance between both the supply and the demand, and it's quite useful to know that you can have coaches who can like train you from afar, and the interesting trend is that's what people also want. I think post pandemic, people started forgetting the geographical limitations or the fact that you're somewhere like even now we're trying to chat and I'm in India and you're in the US, and this is not stopping us from connecting and chatting on a call. And I think that's the same thing when it came to meeting friends or trying to chat with a couple of mentors online. And I think people have somewhere moved past the geographical barrier, and that really, I think, plays in favor for a platform like Leland, which is focused more on the quality and the kind of impact that you want to be making, rather than getting stuck with a lot of supply side demands and trying to get that more factored in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's good to know. And yes, over to ask the main question that I think you would have a lot to share on, which is you are a first time founder. So definitely there's room for our mistakes. What did you learn from some of the mistakes? Or like did you think that you could have done something better, which you later looked at and sort of reflected on?
Yeah, I mean, I could give you a laundry list of mistakes I've made. And fortunately nothing that has, damaged the company in a permanent way. I think a lot of founders would probably admit to just you're learning on the job in a lot of ways. That's everything from hiring mistakes, fundraising, getting press, building product. I think, just to list a few, I think I've tried to future proof our products at times when in reality, I should just, get something out, learn, and kind of move on. I've made the mistake of trying to do too many things, which just spreads the team too thin. I've made the mistake in hiring of giving away too much equity in cash, and I've made the mistake of not giving away enough. And so, learning how to calibrate that appropriately. I've made the mistake of, not vetting people in hiring as thoroughly as I should, or moving too slow because we're trying to vet too much. I think and fundraising and getting press, there's just a number of things that you do that you're like, oh, the next time I'll get that right. So yeah, I think it's like totally, it's totally normal to make mistakes. I think there's probably this nervousness around as a founder to broadcast mistakes. And so I don't think a lot of people, openly share them because they want to feel like they're always positioning themselves. And I think that's good. I don't think you should publish all the worst things you've ever done. But I do think there's a lot of learnings that people have that would be, valuable to share and learn from. And I've gotten a lot of value from talking to founders that are like one or two stages above me and hearing all the mistakes they've made and just, telling me how to manage a fundraising process more effectively, which helped us. And then, how to hire people more effectively, which has helped us build a really great team. So yeah, we're still making mistakes, but we're trying to learn as much as we can from other people before, so the mistake isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, like making new mistakes each time, so you have like new learning to fix from, and
Yeah.
that's for sure. Right? What's more very valid from what you were just saying is how we should start talking more about what didn't work for us. Because I know I've been following a lot of what you generally write about on social media as well. And interestingly, I really liked the last mile, problem that you were talking about, where users don't have a great first onboarding experience, and that's something very easily founders can miss. And what also standing out from a lot of what you mentioned now is, in fact, just away from the product, right? The product of the platform is what we think is the larger part of the picture. But what could add on to that is very, very subtle, but definitely important things like whether it comes to equity, whether it's come to building a new team from scratch, or whether it's coming to sending the right emails to your customers, or like setting up the UX and the first great onboarding experience for them. So a lot of this may not directly relate to the product. So I think surprisingly, even from what you pointed it out, I feel like these are all very core things that most founders don't talk about, or most founders don't realize until like the last minute. So I'm glad this conversation can like help others listening, the other founders and creators listening, to start doing that now, or start talking to the other peers about, hey, I did this and I feel like I'm missing something out. Like, would you add on to what I've done? Get this conversation up and running.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Hopefully we can all learn from each other. Lots of mistakes that are being made every day.
Yeah, yeah. And the fact that they are mistakes is even more, conducive for a better way of improving what we're doing. So definitely looking
Yeah.
forward to getting more talk about it. So yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I also want you to talk about product management, because now there's obviously like a lot of talk around the role as it is, the product management stream of career. And I also know that Leland very recently added like a separate category of coaching for product management. And you were a product manager earlier with LinkedIn and Curated. So you've been on the journey, and then you're like more like a PM turned founder. So I'm going to ask you like three things that you can tell me as putting on your PM hat, which you would even do now, right now, with what you're building at Leland. So, what's very surprising, satisfying, and challenging about this being or using the PM hat to work on things?
Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, so surprising, satisfying, and challenging. Surprising, I think, is especially coming from a larger tech company with more engineering resources, is that in a startup, you don't need much in order to get signal. And I think it's pretty important to be rigorous about what you're actually building. And if you need to build the full thing, or if you can get away with something that's a no-code tool or some other type of test before you really invest in building scalable infrastructure and a really strong foundation in your product. So that's been surprising. And we continue to do this, often. It's not just the first iteration. It's like the first iteration of every new feature. Not every, but a lot of new features. Satisfying is building a product and new features that, immediately are adopted. And frankly, especially the ones that weren't necessarily requested, but we just, we kind of translated feedback and data into some sort of insight. And of course, like that in the pursuit of helping people reach their goals is obviously the most satisfying piece of our product in particular. Like getting into school or getting a job. Challenging. I think for us, the biggest challenge is building a horizontal marketplace that has a bunch of different categories while building resonance and, extreme relevance within each category. So at the same time, someone can be on our platform looking for help with product management, trying to get a job in product, or, be a better PM. Someone who's trying to get into undergrad or medical school or something, totally unrelated, could be on the platform and feel like the platform is the perfect place for them too. So trying to build, this horizontal marketplace with vertical relevance is really tough, and is the fun part of where we're at right now. And we've been having a lot of fun debates and learning from other companies too.
Yeah, I was just going to add the fun part. So great that you tagged it along, because I was going to say that what's challenging is also fun on a very similar. So
Yeah.
definitely, and spot on answer for all three, especially the challenging part of it, because I think like you said, the resilience is definitely the major part. But what I also see is how each of the category is a parallel thing to the other one, right? Like, for example, somebody who's trying to get a fellow peer try to enter a new school is the same person who could also like try to help another person with their product experiences because they've been like a PM right now or in some of their previous experiences. So I think the resonance going into the relevance and the depth, as well as drawing or connecting the dots across these categories, also makes the coaches more solid and more well prepared, I think, on the marketplace. So it's more like getting like a moat sort of it around what you're building, even if it's going to be like less number of coaches, right? Like if you have 200, 300 coaches when you're well versed with respect to different levels, I think that's
Yeah.
again a very interesting thing to look for.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's great. It's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So, yeah, I think we also could touch upon the $4 million seed fundraising that you just did for Leland. So there are founders out there looking to fundraise, but they're very unsure about whether this is the right time, especially with the recession news around the corner. Everybody's just hearing all rumors, the layoffs, and so many other things happening around us just after the giant news about pandemic. So, how did you do it? And in general, what tips do you have for someone who is looking to raise capital? And when would you say is the right time for them to think about?
Yeah. So, I mean, feel very lucky that we raised at the time that we raised. And I think that everything I say should probably be taken with a grain of salt because it is different right now. And I see that with a lot of friends and other founders. But deals are still getting funded and there's still, VCs that are active. So I don't think it's, it definitely hasn't stopped. I think, there's a bunch of tactical tips you can get into around, running a process or whatever. But I think maybe more generally speaking, I would say get going on you don't need fundraising or you shouldn't need fundraising to get going. And I think I've seen a lot of founders that will kind of dabble with ideas and then they'll like come up with an idea and then they'll try to raise off this idea. And that can work if you have this amazing track record. But for first time founders, I think you really need to convince the investor that you are doing this and this is happening. And some investors won't believe you, but the ones that see it and they're like, wow, they've made a ton of progress in the last 6 months. They already have an MVP built. They already have customers transaction on the platform. You just kind of proved that you're in it and and this is real and you have some sort of insight. I think that really helps just getting some momentum going and showing kind of consistency over time, especially if you can tell them, you kind of show them over time. You can like have a conversation in the early days. You can then, continue to reach, they'll probably reach out to you. You reach out to them at times, but show them over 6 to 12 months, this is happening. I'm making progress. I think ideally it's nice if you can build relationships with VCs before you eat them. That's hard. That's not always accessible for a lot of people. And I hate that that's just how the system works, but VCs have a lot of deals. And so they're going to think about the ones that are top of mind. And so trying to be in situations that give you access or, whether that's like, if you're in the US, it's probably like going to events and trying to get introductions or build relationships with people that, be in situations that allow you to build those relationships. If you're not in the US, like perhaps it's building an audience on social media. So people start to recognize your name, even though they're not, close to you. So I think it's like trying to do scrappy things that help people recognize you and see you as someone that is a doer. So yeah, I don't know. I think in terms of the timing, it's different for every business. I think, some people are able to raise off just a deck. Other people need to have some sort of progress. And it can be frustrating as a founder when you're building a business and customers like what you're doing and you're seeing all this progress and then you're not getting progress on the investor side. And the reality is it is just a different game. And I've made a ton of mistakes with this. I think there's a lot of different things. I feel like I'm a much better executor. I care a lot more about setting the vision for the company. I feel like I'm a much better founder when it comes to that than I probably am with fundraising. And I need to flex that into
Yeah.
being a good fundraising CEO as well, because that's a super important part of things. So, I think there's a lot of tips out there, but those are just a few that I'd mentioned.
Yeah. No, I think it's also amazing that you get to know what is something that you're really good at and what is something you need a little more to work on. And in your case, just like you, there are many folks out there who care more about the platform or the work that you're doing as much or little more than even trying to know how to fundraise or trying to know how to connect with VCs. And I mean, sounds like it boiling down to two major steps. One is put yourself out there, like get your presence either in terms of usage or some sort of data or metrics that you can show that you are providing value. And the other one is to tap into the networks either directly or like indirectly with through your friends of friends. And yeah, I think both of these definitely take a bit of outreach or that effort from a founder's side. And it's good that people should start doing it and people should start connecting with folks and trying to see where it takes them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Synopsis.
Yeah. And I also, I think from what you mentioned as well, there's another point that stood out to me, which is it's also important, just like how you have a founder market fit. It's also important that the VC or any investor who's trying to look into supporting you needs to find not just the product value, but also the value of getting themselves associated. Like somewhere it's also the relationship between you and the VC, right? So if they don't really get the impact or the value as much as human to human level, I think that's again a huge challenge to solve for. Apart from what you're already doing with the product.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think there's a lot of challenges that investors. Well, if investors don't personally understand the problem that you're solving, you have to help them understand, or give them a really easy, like, kind of parallel. Because sometimes people are solving problems that they're just like they're niche or people don't have the same visibility into. And so sometimes investors will say, would I ever do that? No, I would never do that. That's not, they're probably not building for VCs. So
Yeah.
I think that's something important.
That's helpful. Yeah, that's helpful. One of the last questions for you for today is around what you really like doing, which is as much as building, you also love creating content. And I've seen you share a lot of your personal experiences on social media channels. Do you also have other peers? Like you said, you look up to founders who have been there in the journey much, much before you. And did you try and get any lessons from them? And do you try sharing lessons with folks? How does it usually work? Because it's going to help a lot of them listen today to start that outreach like we were just speaking.
Yeah. This is a tough one because I feel like I don't necessarily love creating content. It's not a bad thing. I think I just sometimes, don't feel like my brand is like this person who likes to be, talking about myself. So that's been a hard thing for me, but it's really important for our business that we get the word out there and that we tell our story and that people recognize us and we get a lot of traffic from social. And so, it's been a good, like, uncomfortable thing for me to do to like start to create more content, share more of the stories. And I do appreciate it when people, I'm glad it can be helpful for some people that are thinking about things. And I'm trying to create a content that feels like actually helpful, and authentic as much as possible so that it can feel, true to myself. But yeah, I think there's a lot of really good content creators out there that I look up to. Somehow I don't understand how people have time to create content while also running a company. It's like, I'll forget about it for a while and then I'll like spend a weekend just jotting down things and I can schedule, I can post throughout the week. But, I'm trying to capture a lot of the lessons I've learned from other founders, other people that I've learned from as I've gone throughout this journey, and try to share that in a way that can be helpful to people. But I definitely have a lot to watch and improve there, and just getting going as a content creator, I guess.
Yeah, I think the, the tip would be please keep going because in a way, I think what you post is going to help a lot of others who are looking out to build something in either the same league or trying to use some of what you share with them and get them up with what they're doing. So yeah, makes sense. And the pro tip over here, another thing would be to take notes and then use it later. I guess like how you said you work on weekends,
Yeah.
you try to use what you've learned and like write about it sometime when you have the right space and mindset to think about it.
Yeah. 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 It's good. It's good. Good tip.
Yeah, awesome. So, yeah, thanks a lot, John. I think today's chat has been super fun, especially for me to learn and know more about Leland because I've been following you and the brand and the product platform as well. So, it's been lovely to talk a lot about marketplaces, trying to build communities, and then trying to literally discover what the first set of challenges for a new founder could be. So, thank you so much for being extremely candid and sharing a lot of what you've learned in the journey and with the folks here
Yeah.
listening to this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It's great. I'm glad that you're part of the Leland community and appreciate all the support. So, yeah, hopefully this is helpful.